Here's an interesting thing. Lots of schools know that rehearsal, where we practice outside the classroom, is one of the most powerful ways to improve teaching. But not all of us are doing it regularly. What's going on? Teacher rehearsal, or deliberate practice as it's sometimes known, is a form of professional development where we watch a model of what good looks like, we adapt it for our own subjects, students and style, and then we practice it multiple times with feedback from a colleague between each round. We can do this as part of instructional coaching or even group rehearsal. There's increasing evidence that this approach is significantly powerful, way more powerful than things like discussion and reflection, for example. And while there are lots of schools all around the world doing rehearsal every week, maybe even multiple times a week, there are also plenty that aren't doing it. And for a long time, I didn't do it either. What's going on? Why are there so many of us not doing something we know that can help us significantly get better? This is a question I think, as a profession, we need to take really seriously. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't seen much conclusive research around this, but over the years, I've begun to develop my own triple hypothesis to try and explain this gap. Firstly, in schools, teaching can often be a really isolated act. We can go months, maybe even years, without a colleague watching us perform. And as a result, over time, we can begin to see teaching as a really private act. And so when somebody asks us to rehearse, it can feel uncomfortable, unnatural, maybe even babyish. Secondly, for years, when someone did come to observe us, it was often to evaluate or to judge us. Our school would end up with a grade, or our performance or our progression might even be influenced. And so when someone suggests that they come and observe us, we can feel really vulnerable, unless, of course, there's a high degree of trust with that person. And then thirdly, for a long time, training was really only for those teachers at the start of their career, or for colleagues who weren't good enough. And so when we're asked to rehearse, we can sometimes feel like our experience isn't being respected, which of course couldn't be farther from the truth. The best teachers still need to practice, just like the best musicians, tennis players, and surgeons. Put those three things together: the isolated nature of teaching, a legacy of high-stakes observation, and the perception that training is for those who are less expert or less experienced than us. And we end up with a set of quite serious barriers. Rehearsal resistance is a legit thing. Just because rehearsal resistance is a real thing doesn't mean we need to accept it. We're not a profession that shies away from doing hard things. But where there are ways to make things easier, to reduce the friction, we should totally use them. So what can we do to grease the wheels of rehearsal? Over the last year at Steplab, we've been working really hard to develop a new tool to help schools run highly effective teacher rehearsal. And as part of that process, and in conversation with lots of great schools about how to get things right, I've identified 3 tactics that can make a big difference. 1, remind people why, and keep reminding them. In the busyness of schooling, it's easy to forget that rehearsal is backed by research, used by lots of other professions, and probably the best way for us to master our craft. 2, create a super safe, trusted space. Make it clear that it's okay to make mistakes, there will be 0 consequences or ridicule, and that what goes on in the room stays in the room. 3, make it easy to get started. Shrink the change, focus on one small, highly relevant thing at a time, and as a leader, make sure you go first. Ideally embarrassing yourself a bit as well, because that just makes everyone else a bit more comfortable and brave. And then once you've got some initial momentum, just keep going. The best way to get over rehearsal resistance is to just do it. I even remember my own first rehearsal. I was literally sweating. I was convinced everyone was going to judge me, but after a while, nothing bad happened. I even began to enjoy myself, and then I started to improve. And after that, there was no going back. Those schools that just keep going, that manage to get over the initial hump of rehearsal resistance don't just see teaching getting better faster, they also create a common language of practice. They have stronger alignment between staff, and they create a stronger sense of camaraderie, which is ever more important in this connected yet fragmented society we live in. So if your school isn't doing teacher rehearsal yet, it's genuinely worth setting aside a bit of time to have a serious conversation about it. What's really getting in the way? How can you grease the wheels? Often big changes in schools start with a small chat, sometimes even a lukewarm cup of tea. And if you do have a crack at it, let me know how you get on and what you learn. I'd love to hear what you think.